Megan Dean, Director of Education at Roaring Fork Conservancy. I'm here today to teach you how to draw a scientific illustration of trout. Trout are a fish species that are found throughout our watershed in the state of Colorado. Our native trout, which we're going to focus on today, is the cutthroat trout. And this is a species of trout that was originally in Colorado. It wasn't brought from any other part of the world. I have an illustration. This is an artistic illustration of a cutthroat trout. We're going to be doing a simplified version of this, and we're going to be going over all the different body parts and the anatomy of the trout and the adaptations that help these magnificent creatures survive in our waters. To create a scientific illustration and drawing of a trout, you're going to need a few things. The first thing you need is just a white piece of paper. This is just simple typing paper or printer paper. It's not fancy drawing paper at all. And then you also need a pencil. And again, this is just a school grade pencil with a nice eraser. I have to erase a lot because I am not perfect at anything. And then I picked out a few colors that will really help show the coloration of the cutthroat trout. So I have a really pretty pink. And these are colored pencils. A light green, a dark green, a brown, an orange color, and a red. And the red is really important on the cutthroat trout because that's one of the distinguishing colors that mark that as a cutthroat. So the first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to decide where your fish is going to start and end. I always make a little dot where my fish is going to start, and I'm going to make a little dot right here so I don't go over my paper. And then I'll make a little fish or a little dot where the fish will end. And I'm going to move it back a little bit so I have enough room for my tail fin or my caudal fin. So the first line that I'm going to make is going to look like a rainbow. So I'm going to connect my two dots, and I'm going to make an arch or a rainbow. And then I'm going to make two bumps on the head. I'm going to smooth that out a little bit, and we'll make a bump here and here. Those little bumps, that M, will look a little bit like the mouth after we get to that point. And then we're going to draw the underneath side of the trout by making an upside down rainbow. The next part of the trout anatomy is the eye. So eyes on trout are really easy because they're just a circle. So I am going to draw my eye right about here. And then once I draw my eye, I'm going to draw a smaller circle on the inside. So it shows not only the actual eyeball of the fish, but the socket that the fish is encased in. Now that we have our eye, I've outlined the fins that help the fish swim. Fins are an adaptation, and they are part of the trout's anatomy. The top fin is the dorsal fin. And the dorsal fin is a really, really strong fin that looks a little bit like a triangle. So I'm going to make a little arch here, and then I'm going to come in and make little W's. And that leaves room for me to draw in the spines that gives that fin its strength. And then I can draw a spine back here and here and here. Now I'm going to move on to the tail fin or the caudal fin. And the tail fin of the cutthroat trout comes out like this, and it's another type of triangle. And then it comes back towards the middle. And then we make the same shape on the other side of the fin. And you'll notice that I have a few lines there. A lot of times I have to do this more than once to get the shape that I want. So I just go back in and erase the lines I don't like. sometimes I even start over if I really don't like my fish, and that's okay. And I want to show you, this was a fish that I started before that I didn't like. So I just tried a new one. I didn't like how wide it was. And that's the wonderful thing about art. We can always start again. We always get to try again and again. So we have our dorsal fin and our tail fin. We need our pelvic fin, which is right back here. And the pelvic fin is kind of where, if you can feel your hip bones, it would be where the hips are in the fish, but fish don't have hips. Now you see that I've added the pectoral fin. So the pectoral fin is another kind of small triangular shape. And this fin also has spines in it. It comes down in order to help the fish have stability in rushing rapids and water as they hunt for their food. And I'll bring the spines back to the pelvic fin in the back here. And we have one more fin to add. So right near the tail fin is called the anal fin. And we're going to, again, continue our little pattern of making an arch in kind of a triangle shape. And then bringing it back. And then connecting our spines. Now, the next part of the anatomy of the trout that we're going to talk about and draw is the gill plate. So a fish does not breathe like humans. They actually have a part of their body that allows the water to go through, and it's able to take the oxygen out of the water. And it does that in the fish's gills. So we can't forget those. Another important part of the fish anatomy, especially on a trout, is the lateral line. So a lateral line is a light line that goes along the side of a fish. And it's an amazing sensory organ that allows the fish to detect changes in the current of the water and detect its prey. So as insects are swimming by, or potentially even bigger fish that might eat this one, this little organ lets the fish know that, and it knows if it should chase it or run away. And that part of the fish is always a little darker. Now I'm going to add a little bit more definition into the mouth of the fish. These fish have teeth. They are definitely predators, even though their prey is very, very small. And I wish I could give it a smiley face, but they don't smile. At least not when I'm around. And we're going to just add another little line here. Show the, and one on the bottom. Give that mouth just a little bit of definition. And now we get to add the spots. So one of the beautiful parts of a cutthroat is they have these gorgeous little spots. And every cutthroat's different, just like human beings. So just while every human being has different birthmarks or freckles, trout have different spots. I'm going to make a lot down by the tail, but this is kind of the fun part. You can add spots wherever you want, wherever you think they should go. The cutthroat do not usually have a lot of spots around their head. They might have a few on their tail. The tails also need to have spines. We forgot those. So I'm going to put spines on the tail. Almost makes like the fish look like it's racing through the water. Now comes the fun part, the coloring. The reason why our cutthroat trout has the name of the cutthroat because it really looks like the fish has a cut on its throat. So right around its gills, we're going to give that a nice red color. If you're ever lucky enough to catch one of these, you'll notice that their gills are all red and they're not bleeding, although it can look like that. And often that red extends and there's a reddish pinkish color along the bottom of the trout. Now I'm going to use my brown color and I'm going to lightly color kind of the background of the fish, the main part of the body. And I'm going to go over my eye again. There's my circle, and here's my inner circle, which I will eventually color black. And now I'm going to use a darker green color along the top. And extend that green color into the fin. And this is kind of a fun place to play a little bit. You can use a slightly different shade of green. You can make it darker or lighter. I'm going to give my trout some kind of greenish lips. Oh, and an important part that I forgot is fish do not have nostrils like we do, but they do have something called nares. So I'm going to make a little dark oval here, and this is the nares. Science and art go together really, really well. And then towards the very end, I'm going to add in actually a little bit of yellow. And I didn't say that we needed yellow in the beginning, but as an artist, I'm changing my mind. And I'm going to go in and give this fish some nice black eyes, but I'm going to leave a little bit of white. So it looks like there's a reflection from the light. It makes the fish just look a little more alive. There we go. And then I might use some gold around that so the fish's eye really stands out. And then I'm going to go back in and add black for the spots. I'm going to use the pink to kind of bring my red in and just blend that a little bit. So it looks a little bit less like rosy cheeks and a little bit more like the markings of a cutthroat trout. You can just lightly blend the red that you've already placed down into some of the other colors that have been added. Remember, you can always smear it with your hands too. To help it all blend together. Because real fish don't have lines. Thanks for joining me on this art adventure. And remember, the more you draw, the better you get.